Hey everyone, what's up? What's going on? My name's Joe, and this right here is about to be the fastest pre-roll to a podcast in your entire podcast application, or SoundCloud, or YouTube, or wherever you're tuning in from. Oh god, I'm already wasting time. But really, we have nothing new to announce. I just have two quick reminders for you. The first being to join our Facebook discussion group. How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The Facebook group. It's your go-to place for all things movies, whether it be movie trailers, movie news, or even movie memes. And then the other thing would be howmanyfingerspodcast.bigcartel.com. It's where all of our merch is located, and you can buy that to support the podcast, which is super important. And t-shirts are only like $9.99. That's pretty good, right? And anything else you can find at our website, howmanyfingerspodcast.com. Anyway, we've got some great reviews coming up this month. Next week, we're doing Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, with photographer Caitlin Speece. And then the week after that, we're going to be reviewing Mission Impossible Fallout. Hey, but enough about these upcoming reviews. Let's get into this one. This week, we're reviewing Skyscraper. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Mike.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The podcast. And this week we'll be reviewing Skyscraper.
That's what they called my junk in college.
I went to college with you. Nobody did that, Mike. Hey everyone, and welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? Featuring two guys getting got and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And thank you to Sean Henry on Facebook for that synonym suggestion, one of my new favorites that we've had submitted here. You got got! You got got! That's from Entourage, right?
Yes, that's like the punk-esque show that they put drama on or something.
And Pauly Shore is like
right?
Yeah,
like,
you
he's the host.
You got
It might have been a reference to that. There's a, what's it called? There's a Death Grip song called Get Got. That was like one of like their big hits. It was like, get, got.
I like the Entourage reference more.
I like it too.
But Sean Henry, of course, a former guest on the podcast on our Get Out episode. Get out, get got. Check that out.
You either get out or you get got.
You either get out or you live long enough to see yourself get got. But this week, we are drinking Yuengling Golden Pilsner, a refreshing and smooth beer.
And if you're looking on YouTube, look at that crisp,
golden
bright
can.
Yellow. I think this is new. From Yuengling. I was talking to the lady at Acme. She's like, we can't keep it on the shelves. And I was like, I've never tried it before. But now that I'm trying it,
it's all right.
It's okay.
It's got that kind of like salty taste, like Narragansett, or what?
Yeah, it's Narragansett.
Yeah, right.
It's like I can taste the inside of the can.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can describe this beer. Mike said earlier, it's like it's intentionally skunked. It's kind of, yeah.
It isn't bad.
No, it's not
it's
bad.
It's just a different type of like crappy light beer.
You're right. I'd rather have Yuengling.
I say crappy with the utmost affection.
I'd much rather have Yuengling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about how like Yuengling has all these like different types, and it's like I just want the Yuengling taste. Everything else just tastes like a modified version of Yuengling, which doesn't really need to be modified.
There was a time where I really enjoyed a good Yuengling Black and Tan.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good. And yeah, like I said, there's like a green can that's like Lord Chesterfield, and that's kind of like a more expensive Yuengling that kind of tastes like this, but is more so, I don't know, it's in the right direction of taste.
More lagery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I feel like this is... Were you the one that said like beer is starting, or the beer industry is starting to shift away from like IPAs and more towards lagers.
The rubber band has kind of snapped with IPAs.
This is a Pilsner, but still, again, I'm glad Yingling never made an IPA.
Yeah, Yingling never stooped to a Yingling hoppy or whatever.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of actually would have loved to try that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, but we are reviewing Skyscraper this week. Joe, you want to give me that IMDb description, and I'll jump into my mic notes.
I would love to. On imdb.com, the description for Skyscraper is: a security expert must infiltrate a burning skyscraper 225 stories above ground when his family are trapped inside by criminals. Okay. Not where. I think I read the IMDb description like a week ago or something, and it said like, a man must go to great lengths to save his... And I was like...
Not heights?
Not heights? Come on! That should be the tagline, baby!
Just a man must go to great heights.
Yes.
Skyscraper. A man must go to great heights.
To save his family.
But Skyscraper was written and directed by Rawson Marshall Thuber, who sounds like he should be like a Supreme Court justice with that name.
Yeah, really.
The Honorable Rawson Marshall Thuber.
Yeah, that's...
He's got quite the filmography under his belt. He has written and directed Dodgeball, The Mysteries of Pittsburgh. That sounds like that's connected, but that's just two different films I'm talking about. Dodgeball, The Mysteries of Pittsburgh. He directed We're the Millers, but didn't write it. And then he wrote and directed Central Intelligence and the upcoming Red Notice and We're the Millers 2. Again, he only directed the upcoming We're the Millers. So he's worked with The Rock before on Central Intelligence.
It's crazy that We're the Millers was popular. I've never seen it, that it was popular enough to warrant like a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard
it's
a lot
funny.
of good things about it. Yeah,
I've seen like pictured, whatever you call it, like vertical scenes from it, but just never got around to seeing it. Just a random fact: he is the son of a multimillionaire attorney, real estate professional, and inspirational speaker Marshall Thurber. Oh, is it Thurber or Thuber? Did I write it wrong, or did they write it wrong? Thurber. Sorry. Rawson Marshall Thurber. I got his dad's name right, but not his. And his dad is Marshall Thurber. So he's a man coming from much privilege.
Yes.
Multimillionaire attorney father. And the only other real mic note I have is the box office performance. As of July 27th, 2018, Skyscraper has grossed $55.3 million in the United States and Canada and $166.6 million in other territories for a total worldwide gross of $221.9 million against a production budget of $125 million. So they did make their money back, but this was considered somewhat of a flop.
Oh, did they make their money back?
Worldwide gross,
yes.
221.9 against production budget of 125. I mean, that's not including, it's production budget. That's not including advertising. And there was a lot of advertising.
That's Super Bowl money, baby.
Was it the Super Bowl that this premiered?
Yeah, this trailer. This and Mission Impossible. It's kind of like we're in that time zone.
Because we have been seeing this trailer for like a long time. Because I remember there was like, it must have been at the Super Bowl. Because there was the whole, like, not necessarily like memes, but there was the whole like joke around him jumping,
like the trajectory,
and people were like mapping it out, like how fast would he have to run to jump and make that incredible jump from the crane to the skyscraper.
I remember reading an article, or maybe a podcast that I was listening to referenced it, because I mean I said this before, but I feel like next year I would love to do something where maybe we can get like you guys involved, or in our Facebook discussion group, like a prediction of like what we think will be like top of the box office, or like at least the top 10 at the box office over the summer or something. That would
be cool, yeah.
Because like a lot of people have been doing that on like podcasts I listen to, and I'm like, oh, this is like a cool idea, especially because all the wild cards that have been thrown into the
There's
summer.
that app I keep forgetting to download that's like fantasy movies for like box office. Like you predict
Right.
what's going to be in what order each week at the box office, and you can bet money on it and stuff.
But I remember an article, I forget who wrote it, but it was kind of like, it was like months and months ago, but it was like, here's why Skyscraper is going to be like the highest grossing like movie of this, like non-franchise movie of the summer or something. And it was kind of like, oh, how wrong. That article.
Well, what other non-franchise movies have come out? Yeah, that's
true. Now that I think about it,
that's kind of just like a non-bold prediction because like there's like 4 other movies that came out that weren't part of like franchises.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about
like
that.
The other highest grossing ones are like Jurassic World franchise, Mission Impossible Now franchise, Avengers. Solo's probably not even really up there. I mean, it might be, but it's just disappointing for Star Wars.
Everything's a fucking sequel. Yeah. It's crazy that even like I just was cracking up the entire time we were reviewing Sicario 2. I was just like, we're reviewing Sicario 2. It's fucking weird. The Equalizer
Can't wait for
2.
Amistad 2.
Yeah, really.
Saving Private Ryan again.
Yeah, but maybe I'll backstep on that. I can't think of. I don't know. But the weekend that this did come out, I think it was a little disappointing domestically. I haven't looked into what this is doing worldwide, but the weekend this did come out, it like finished third, I think with like $24 million, and like it was beat by like Ant-Man, and then Hotel Transylvania 3 was like opening the same week, and that made like choice with this.
And Ant-Man was in its like second or third week at that point.
It was in its second week, yeah. Which
this was never at the top for a week, I don't think.
No, and well, I think the highest it was third, because then it dipped down to 6.
I mean, it seems like it did all right. Dipped down to worldwide.
9th. Yeah, which I believe
166.6 million in other territories that aren't United States and Canada.
But yeah, it didn't. I feel like it didn't translate over here, or it didn't. I don't know.
They globalized it too much.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's just kind of like, is this review gonna be fucking Rampage Part 2? Like, you know, like
that. I mean, I don't have many notes for this movie, but that is kind of the. Dwayne, what are you doing, man? Like, it's the same complaint that I have from Rampage. Like, why is he incapable of picking like what is generally received to be as like a good movie? Like,
it's like Fire Agent, dude. It's not. I don't know.
I mean, like, he's making money, so like I guess you wouldn't fire your agent, and it seems like he's probably having fun doing these movies. This is someone like, I mean, he's worked with this guy before, and he probably had a lot of fun on the Central Intelligence set with Kevin Hart. So like,
right, and it's like
when Ross and Marshall Thurber calls you up again, you're like, all right, yeah, we had a good movie there, I guess.
Right. This just seems so in line with just like that other director he works with, where he did like the San Andreas and Rampage or whatever. It's just, there's so much of just like, this premise is like, oh, like he's like just literally defined, and like the thing that propels the action is just kind of like my family, and then like San Andreas is like, I gotta go back, my family, and then Rampage is like, my monkey, and like, and then
my friend George. What are you doing to my friend? That animal.
And then in Fast and Furious, he's like, family.
No, it's Vin Diesel.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, The Rock, I'm sure now has caught on to. They all chant family in Fast and Furious. They're all about family.
Family. Oh boy. So yeah, that's all I really got for Mike notes here. So we can talk about.
So I mean, this movie's just exactly what you'd expect it to be. It never really strayed from. There's some plot points like that I was kind of, that are like caught me off a little off guard. Like the opening sequence, I was kind of like, oh, what kind of movie are we watching here? Because like,
oh, I love the way that was shot. The
brutal.
Opening, like, and I like the way it was. Like we start like on the house, and we're pulling back. And then we can see that there's police lights, and then we can see the cop cars, and then we're hearing like the radio chatter from within the cop car, and then we come out to find it's this whole hostage situation. It was really the only cool shot that was in this movie, but it was pretty cool.
It's a well done scene.
Yeah,
the whole thing. Yeah, no. And then, yeah, it's kind of like a gruesome scene where the guy blows himself up. I mean, obviously we don't see any of this shit, but then he presumably kills his wife and children, and then he injures, like, a lot of, like, The Rock, who is in, like, special ops, or he's doing something. What is it? I don't know exactly what
it was like
doing.
hostage rescue or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he used to be Army Special Forces or something,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like is The Rock's like character description for like every movie he's in. Like former Special Forces.
The only way this guy could get this ripped is if he was in the army.
Why doesn't he just do like a wrestling movie?
I don't know.
They'll do The Wrestler too. Mickey Rourke has to teach The Rock how to be a professional wrestler.
I was kind of cracking up because I saw this in like a theater that was mostly empty except for a group of teenagers, and it was just kind of like cute the way that they didn't know like these like tropes that are hit in every action movie, kind of, where it was just kind of like he gets hurt by the explosion and then he comes to consciousness again and he's in the hospital, and you see like the face of like the woman surgeon or whatever, and she's like, "You're gonna be all right." And then again, flash forward, he's got like a family with her and he's got 2 kids, and one of the kids behind me was like, "Whoa, the surgeon's his wife?" And it was just kind of like, yeah, welcome to every fucking hospital. Like, before anybody goes into surgery and there's like an attractive woman who's about to operate on you, you're goddamn right it's gonna flash forward and you're gonna have children with them. Like, it's such like a fucking overdone trope. And again, like, that movie knows that, so like they don't have to do any explaining. They never like this. The entire beginning of this movie is just like exposition, you know? And it's just like, they never have to be like, and that's how we fell in love. It's just kind of like, no, you guys know this fucking story.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But yeah, so he's like this security contractor and he's being called to Hong Kong to evaluate the security of the skyscraper.
I had a real hard time believing this part of it. Like, I feel like they might have gone too far. Like, I mean, I guess it makes sense if they're trying to, like, they want to get someone that Pablo Schreiber's character can, like, set up, so it's got to be a friend or whatever.
Yeah,
but like,
that's the only logic.
He's like admitting that he runs a security firm from his garage, and then one of the richest people in the world, building like the biggest skyscraper in the world in Hong Kong, is going to hire like just some random American out of his garage, like who used to be in Special Forces and like hostage, whatever. And like none of like the stuff that he does is based around it. It's all technology based. Mm-hmm. Like, why wouldn't they get someone who's been like coding for their entire life? And like, why wouldn't they at least show us like, oh, like they could have easily had like a man in the chair for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who was like some IT nerd at his company for the security, because clearly so much of it is technology based. Like, it's not like, oh, like I know how to do the security for this building because I used to like free hostages and stuff. Like, that doesn't teach you about like fire safety and like, you know, all that other stuff. There could have, and it needed, like, this movie needed some more comic relief. There really could have been a like funny man in the chair. There was like such a like, all right, so like obviously this movie looks like it's going to be like a Die Hard ripoff, just because it's a tower movie and it's like sort of like terrorists, I guess, that he's fighting, and it's an action movie. It doesn't really turn out that way because it doesn't hit a lot of like Die Hard strong points. But then when they had the one like cop, the Hong Kong cop, show up, I thought he was going to be like the Carl from Die Hard. Yeah. And then he's not even that in this movie. He's just like a super serious like Hong Kong cop who's just trying to find out who this guy is. Right, like, another wasted opportunity for some comic relief that could have been there. I don't know. This movie needed a lot more punchlines. It needed a lot more comedy. And there's a lot of like plot points they could have fixed by like inserting a comedic character there.
Yeah. No, the whole it is a stretch, kind of like, you know, it is like a setup. Like, I think like The Rock, I was reading or watching something where he was kind of like, oh, it's like he's on some late night show where he's like, oh, it's like Die Hard meets like the Towering Inferno with like a touch of like The Fugitive or something. And like The Fugitive I can kind of see because like somebody's being set up, kind of. Yeah. And I guess he's kind of being set up. But it's still, I just don't know how like he gets this meeting / even just gets like this job kind of. It's so bizarre. It's like Elon Musk like
hiring like a one-man job, like the Empire State Building wouldn't even do that. If it's a firm, like he should be in there with like a whole company of people, and they just couldn't be bothered to cast. Either they didn't cast, or their actual thinking is, oh, he's literally a one-man band out of his garage.
It's like Elon Musk is like, welcome to Tesla. I heard you microwave sandwiches. Like, it's just like fucking what?
Could use someone like you on the team here. Like it's too extreme. Like again, like they could have. It didn't need to be like the world's biggest skyscraper, because like it doesn't really hit home in the movie, because we're just like, okay, it's not a real building. Like,
oh no, that's and they
don't even do a whole lot of like, it's so high up. Like there's not a lot of like height like thrills in this.
There's not, besides like when The Rock
at least not
doing stunts or whatever. Yeah.
Not in terms of like, this is the tallest building in the world thrills. They're just standard. Like it could have been any building.
Especially because the intro is kind of like this like country skyscraper dick measuring contest, and it's kind of like, well, it's bigger than this and 3 times the size of this and quadruple the size of this kind of. And again, they don't really it's a shame that we're reviewing this like the same week that we see Mission Impossible, because I think I said this before, it's like The Rock laying down on a green screen pretending he's climbing, compared to like Tom Cruise like shattering his ankle, like
jumping across buildings.
I don't know. I'm not surprised it's like The Rock one of the things I saw on like film Twitter is just kind of where I was like, you guys are really stretching, is like outrage about like The Rock playing a disabled veteran or something, or like just somebody with a prosthetic, basically, like
rather than a real
the Rock playing a disabled, rather than a real person, a real like an actor playing with an actual prosthetic or whatever. But I just kind of want to be like, sorry, the choice, like the studio is either going to make the choice to have The Rock with a prosthetic, or just The Rock without a prosthetic. Like that, those are the ways that
the movie was made, because it's The Rock. It's a vehicle for The Rock.
Like that's the only way this movie's getting made.
I mean, my main problem with that is like, what was the whole point of him having the prosthetic? Like, there was never any like feelings of like inadequacy or like ableism or anything in this. Like it was like a prop literally for a couple like gags where like where he like catches himself like with the leg.
Right, and that's why people who are like pro, like, what I think The Rock does a lot for like the prosthetic community. Like, no, not really. It's just kind of like a weird detail, and it's not exactly weird how they handle it, but it's just like there's nothing special about it, really. I don't know.
Yeah, like I feel like they always go into these weird backstories in the Rock movies, like that never are really like followed up on. They're just to sort of like barely explain his character. Like this is the stuff I'm talking about, where I'm like, why is The Rock not in better movies? They're all this same type of like, it's not even like cheesy schlock anymore. It's just kind of like, it's becoming its own like stereotype of like The Rock movies, like, again, where he's some kind of like special forces with like a dark past. And like in this one, it's like, oh, I was in a hostage situation where like, hey, like there was like a million people in that room. None of them saw that guy had like a trigger to like blow the explosive vest, and like none of the like snipers who were watching could like tell like the bulge of like his like chest or whatever to see that he had. I feel like that was a very poorly executed special forces mission. Like they must have known, like if he's holding them hostage and he doesn't have a gun anywhere, then I don't know. It felt really dumb.
It's kind of like the minute you blow up the wall, doesn't he just start shooting his family members? Like it's just.
Yeah, I don't know how they didn't see that. And then like it goes into this whole like he's like, they don't even really go as far. It's like really like making him like beat himself up over it. They like sort of have the one scene with Pablo Schreiber where Pablo's like, who he was unarmed. Like, who could have known that he had like a vest strapped to him? I'm like, well, you all probably should have known. And then like it's supposed to set up this whole weird like, oh, like I haven't touched a gun in 10 years, and
that was weird.
I guess they sort of go into that and like I guess maybe does he not really touch a gun until
does he ever shoot a gun? I
guess
really
in
know.
the very last scene he does, right?
Yeah, I just pulled up the wrong Skyscraper. Apparently there was a 1996 Skyscraper starring Anna Nicole Smith. I don't know what kind of movie that was.
Oh my god, babe, I got a skyscraper right now. I can't get off! What are we gonna do with this skyscraper?
I can't get off.
I can't get off. I'm gonna have to jump off of this skyscraper penis. Take me to the top floor. It's like the exact opposite of the Rock movies, because his are so intentionally devoid of like sexuality.
Yeah.
There was a tweet, I think we made this exact point on our review of Rampage, but someone was like, Rock movies are just like Dwayne The Rock Johnson like being able to fuck and choosing not to fuck. Like always being presented with the opportunity to fuck and turning it down.
Yes, yeah. There's like, oh god, like the beginning, like when he's like leaving, you know, before
the
his
family.
Yeah, when he's like parting with his family to go to the job interview or whatever. He's like, they intentionally just like they zoom up on like him like smacking his wife's like butt or whatever, and then like also like him like making out with his wife, and his kids are like, ew, gross, like kind of, and like all of those scenes made me feel so uncomfortable. I was just like, no, this is like seeing a fucking, I don't know, penguin in the desert. Like it doesn't belong here, kind of.
The Rock doesn't fuck.
Yeah.
Rocks don't fuck. Oh god, I was going somewhere. Oh yeah, the I guess really there is the sort of like he doesn't shoot the gun until the very end, but it's not really like built up that way.
When does he shoot the gun at the end?
I mean, I guess this is a spoiler, but
yeah,
to kill the final bad guy at the end.
I thought
when he's like
pushed him or something.
He's like, here's the thing, I'm actually behind you. Does he push him? I thought he shot him.
Oh no, I'm just shaking. I don't remember, but I'm just shaking my head because I remember during that scene I was like, no, you're fucking not. That's not how you guys shot that scene. I was so mad at that scene. I was like it wasn't even like, oh man, like I didn't see that coming. I was like, no, that wasn't an option. You guys had like a clear rack focus of like a human body standing in front of him. Why? How did you? What? I don't know.
Yeah.
Unless, I don't know.
Unless it was working in reverse. I mean, I guess it is 360 degrees. So let's talk about that. There's the whole, like the building's called the Pearl, and it has the actual pearl at the top.
Right,
and they
pearls.
keep talking about like, oh, like the mysterious pearl at top, and nobody knows what's inside yet. It's going to be revealed yet. And then in his like interview, they bring him up to the Pearl, and it's just kind of like, okay, this is just a fucking IMAX theater, man. Like, what's so cool about this? Like,
You couldn't have done this on the ground floor?
well, and he's like presenting it like it's like technology that's gonna like change the world,
Right.
And it's like it's not even like something that you're like opening to the public to like let people come into, and you're not profiting off of it. It's just some weird room.
Not yet. They haven't opened the top half yet, I think, right?
Well, that's like the residential area. They haven't opened up yet. I mean, I don't know if they have any, like, I don't even know what you would do in that thing. Like, I don't understand.
I don't understand how it's a tourist attraction.
I don't understand how it's that cool. I mean, I guess it looks, the idea is supposed to be, it looks so realistic that it can fool you.
Well, it's,
But I don't understand that, like, why is it like a pearl with like a graveyard of screens inside of it? Like,
yeah,
it's like something that's designed to be this final set piece, but they don't have an actual purpose outside of being the final location for this action scene. Mm-hmm. Like it makes sense as the action set piece, but it doesn't make sense in the real world of like, oh, come look at my cool TV room that's a round circle like an IMAX theater, and we have a bunch of like what look like tombstones, but they're actual like TVs. Like, what is the purpose? Like, what is someone going to do if you make them pay to go in that?
Right. And I guess I can see it
There's no seats to watch a movie.
Right. I guess I can see it as like a tourist attraction that you like walk in or whatever. But again, like I said, like what is the point of putting it that high up? Kind of. It was kind of weird. Like I thought like it would have to do
where you have to
something
pass through all the residential buildings or the like apartments and stuff to get to it. Like it doesn't seem like something that would be accessible to the public. But he talks about it like it's some. Like, I don't know why they couldn't put something up there that was like, oh, this actually is revolutionary technology that's going to change the world. Or if that's the only technology that's going to be up there, at least like do some like imagination about like how that could change the world.
No, but it
like,
is
welcome to heaven. Like, cool, it's an IMAX theater, dude. Like,
I mean, yeah, it's cool, and it is. I mean, those fucking the screens that come out of the ground or whatever, like these, like these 8K
or whatever.
Yeah, like the 8K screens that come out of the ground. That
you should have said more than 8K because 8K exists right now.
Yeah, I know.
Like it should be. Oh, it's 24K.
Right, but they're all like popping up out of the ground. Yeah, and it is kind of like, okay, I get. Like, I can get on board with kind of like, oh, they have the cameras pointing out and like you can see what it's like outside real time, even though why not just do that with glass like the fucking Sears Tower, you know, like, but just like, okay, whatever, I'll get on board with that. But then when TV screens start sliding out of the ground and popping up in random spots everywhere, it's like you said, it's fucking like Chekhov's like TV screens.
They do
that come
so
out of the
like
ground,
as
like,
they're
you know?
like going through like and explaining what's in this tower. They like set up all the different like set pieces.
Right.
It's not really a criticism. It's just so blatantly like obvious. Like when they show like the wind turbines, they're like powered completely by these two huge wind turbines. You're like, all right, someone's jumping through those at some point,
Right.
or someone's gonna get chopped up by those. I kind of thought it would be the final scene would be one of the bad guys getting dropped into the wind turbines, and then when like I guess the park part is less obvious, but you're like, well, they're obviously telling us about this inside like 30 floor like park for some reason.
No, yeah, and there's like I don't know. I was kind of cracking up at that scene, the part with the family in like the park or whatever, just because I was like, this film has such like a channel flipping quality to it. I'm like, of course, like you know, it's a film that takes almost entirely place inside of like the skyscraper. But there's like a jungle in the skyscraper. Like it's just kind of like, oh, the Rock's in the jungle again. We love to see that guy in the fucking jungle, man. Like we just love to see like that fucking raw fucking. I don't know.
There are parts of this movie that I do like. They're few, but there's some parts that like again like that opening sequence I think is really well done, despite some of the maybe like writing flaws with it. But it's a well shot, cool sequence. It actually made me be like, oh, all right, maybe I'm in for a different movie than I expected. And then it doesn't really follow up on that. But I do like, I think the hand-to-hand combat with Pablo Schreiber is actually really neat.
Yeah.
In this movie, like it's not something I'm used to seeing with The Rock. Like usually it's just him like beating someone to like a bloody pulp, or shooting guns, or driving cars, or whatever, or I guess jumping across skyscrapers. But.
And I feel like maybe that's like I almost feel like the prosthetic leg is just kind of like more like maybe he could be beat. He's got a fake leg.
Yeah.
Kinda, you know, like it makes him more.
It was kind of funny.
vulnerable.
Like there were like, it was a cool looking fight scene, but it is a little unrealistic. Like seeing like Pablo Schreiber like throw the Rock across the room. Like Ziggy from The Wire is not doing that.
Yeah, no, there was.
Fuck you!
Fuck you!
That's not even Ziggy. That's the other. It's his brother.
That's his brother. Yeah.
The other Sabatka.
No, but at the beginning of this movie, kind of, I saw things like inside the Pearl or whatever, and the tower itself, kind of, or skyscraper itself. You're kind of like, okay, like maybe this could kind of be like sci-fi-ish, because they're kind of like
future Die Hard.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And I was kind of excited for that. But then everything that happens after that is very. I don't know. It echoes Die Hard so much, where it's kind of like.
But none of the good parts of Die Hard.
No. But it echoes like kind of this like weird attitude of kind of like duct tape's not working. You're not using enough of it. Kind of like that kind of like attitude, where it's kind of like, great, everything in this movie is dead serious except for like the one like Kmart dad meme T-shirt you read out loud. Like I was just like.
Kmart dad meme. Yeah. I did kind of like Pablo Schreiber's character, and I thought he was like killed off a little like early, like
Yeah, I like that character
because there was that kind of like it was kind of like, oh, like my friend betrayed me, and then basically I end up killing my friend, and then
there's no reason for him to explain, or there's no time for him to
it should have
explain.
been like, I mean, they could have fought, and like Pablo should have gotten away basically, and I don't know, we could have had like a more emotional climax of this movie of like, you know, maybe Pablo's the one holding his daughter at the end, and you know, and then maybe they could like, because they also sort of like tried to burst their bubble a little too soon on the like conversation about like, you know, like you've got like this wife and family and that's all great, but like what do I got? Like, you know, like I got to work for these like bad people. And
when they're on the ferry or whatever, and he says, they awkwardly fit it in there where he's kind of like, you have like, oh, you got your like family or whatever, and like what do I have? And I kind of thought that was like all part of like, I mean, we all saw, I mean, they clue you in that he's going to be a bad guy kind of like early on.
The moment he shows in like the elevator, you're like, ooh, that's a bad guy.
But it's kind of like, I thought that was part of the con, but I guess he was just randomly being honest like on the ferry where he was kind of, I don't know, it was weird.
But I thought that was kind of compelling. Like, again, like I think we've had this
like
trend of like sort of like
right.
relatable villains, and that like this isn't the most relatable thing, but like I don't know, I'm always down to relate to someone who's like, yeah, it's fucking hard out there. Like, you know, you might have to turn to some things that you didn't want to, and you know, you can't always have this picture perfect life that you've had, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And
right.
I don't know, I feel like that convo would have had more weight later in the movie, you know, at sort of some sort of climax, and probably placed in a scene where like, you know, The Rock is trying to like talk him down, like, oh, like don't drop my daughter, like you don't have to do this, like,
right, yeah.
And he, you know, then he can, you know, spill his emotional guts about that, because then the villain that we do get, like their motivation is just kind of self-preservation. They're not even like terrorists like they are in Die Hard. Like there was this one like snippet of a review that I wanted to read, writing for Entertainment Weekly, Krish Nashawati found the film to be a weak remake of Die Hard, giving it a C- rating and stating, it's all passively watchable, but the main problem is that writer-director Rawson Marshall Thurber hasn't come up with a villain nearly as memorable as Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber. I know that comparison may seem unfair, but when you're ripping off Die Hard this shamelessly, it's kind of not.
Yeah, no, that's what I was about to say about that Rock like late night kind of comparison. I know you have to use titles that everybody knows kind of to be like, oh, like I like Die Hard, I like Towering Inferno, The Fugitive, it was a Best Picture nominee, like, you know, sign me up kind of. But it's kind of like it invites you to compare everything in this movie to Die Hard.
And like there's almost nothing, like enough time has passed since Die Hard that like I'm not even like gonna hate on a movie trying to be the next Die Hard, but like again, it's like the same complaint I keep bringing, where like if you want to like use either IP or like something that reminds us of another movie, like just be smart enough to look at that movie and be like, why did people like that in the first place? And I think that's what this review kind of captures. It's like, yeah, Die Hard works because it's this really captivating villain of Alan Rickman, and then you've got like Carl and Bruce Willis like kind of having this like friendship that forms while Carl is sort of being like the man in the chair for Bruce Willis, like looking through the blueprints and telling him where to go, and like it's like him like sneaking around the building, whereas like this is kind of like just The Rock like doing like crazy weird intense action stunts, and there's no sneaking, and like all the guys kind of like like he fights a lot in the beginning and then doesn't really fight for like a long time in the movie, and it's allowed just fighting the fire of like the building. And again, like you don't have to rip off Die Hard like completely, and right. You shouldn't want
just
to
understand
either.
Understand
what worked about, like Die Hard had like, again, a relatable villain and this like sort of touching and sort of funny like quirky relationship between Bruce Willis and Carl, like on the outside, and like they didn't have like anyone for The Rock to interact with in this movie besides his family. Like there's no one for like him to even say a punchline to, you know, and there was hardly any punchlines in this movie to begin with, and the ones that they tried kind of like really fell flat in this movie.
Yeah, it really sucks that this movie is so self-serious and not fun at all. Like it really, like as much as I hate like fucking like that Rampage ends with like the fucking giant gorilla being like, like pantomiming sex with like his finger and like whatever with his fingers. But like, that's funny. Like, like it's a light note. That was a fucking crazy, stupid movie. And it's kind of like, at least they could acknowledge it. Where at the end of this movie, I was just kind of like, man, that was so self-serious. And nobody told any of these actors that they were going to be starring in like the fucking schlockiest movie ever, kind of.
Like they try to take like a lighter tone at the end of this movie when like the cop who's been like sort of chasing him, like I think they thought that was more of a bigger thing than it actually was. The Hong Kong cop who's chasing him, and then like he kind of like sees him at the end and is like, hey, you got a nice family. And like they couldn't throw a punchline in there.
Yeah.
Like, hey, nice jump or something. I don't know, like anything. Like it's not my job to write it, but like it's like almost like funny in like real life to imagine someone being like, hey, you got a nice family. Bye.
It is I don't know. It is just like a weird, I don't know, to go after something like Die Hard is strange, and it's such a huge feat, because like for years and years after Die Hard came out, that was like that name followed every pitch room around, kind of. It was just kind of like, oh, what is Speed? Well, Speed's like Die Hard in a bus, like it's all these, like every action movie after that was like, well, it's Die Hard on a plane, kind of, and it's just weird that this movie's so like, I don't even know what this pitch is. Like it's Die Hard. It's
not Die Hard in the scenario of Die Hard.
It's just, I don't know. It's rock hard.
I really hate what like globalization is doing to movies, where I feel like every character has to be like so obvious. Either in terms like where they stand on like the moral scale. So like all the good characters have to be like so good. So like the kids are like totally innocent, and The Rock like won't even touch a gun now, and like he's just changed and all that, and like his wife is this perfect like neurosurgeon, and they've just got this picture perfect relationship, and that's what they're like trying to save. Where like in Die Hard, like it's his divorced wife that he's trying to save, right? Like she's the one in the like there's like this just it's not perfect, it's gritty, and there's this kind of like conflict there. Whereas like now that we're globalizing everything and everything needs to be like easily translatable, all the good guys are so clearly good and all the bad guys are so clearly bad. Like even like the one who's supposed to be like the sort of like, oh, he like was my friend but he turned on me, doesn't really work that way, because we didn't recognize him from the opening sequence. But the moment he shows up in the elevator, he's like imposing, and you just know immediately like that's going to be a bad guy. And it doesn't take long before he turns, and then all the other bad guys are just like typecast as like bad guys. And then even like the one guy who like turns, like the lawyer guy or the insurance guy or whatever, like they cast someone who's like just like weird and like,
oh god, yeah,
kind of like creepy in a way, so that when he turns, like he's almost this like a villain from like a fantasy film who's like, oh, you got like a nice wife here that I'm gonna do whatever to. Like it's like too much, like, and it's not relatable at all, and
it's like there was no twists.
It's
like the film like did not want anybody to be too caught off guard by any plot points. They were just kind of like, they would give hella short like foreshadowing with like everybody who was like, I don't know, like the guy you're talking about was practically like looking at the audience and being like, I don't actually work for him. Like every scene he's in, he's just kind of, I don't know, he's suspect.
And he's trying to get out of there. And
I don't know. Even the prosthetic leg, I feel like that's kind of like Bruce Willis, like in bare feet, kind of like I felt like that was kind of like a plot point that was, I don't know.
I didn't like the whole like secondary hacker team. Like the one, like girl who just had like the like little kid voice the entire time, like. The one who like who breaks into the off-site facility and gets the one guy to hack into it so that they can break into the tablets or whatever. Like every line she had was like, ew, like like, you know,
was that the woman who was shooting everybody?
Yeah, with like the swooping like hair in front of her face.
Oh, I didn't
like,
even know she talked.
She has a couple lines, but they're all like delivered with like almost like childlike voice, and it's just like a weird contradiction between like her being this like badass and it was strange. And I don't know who she is either.
There was just like so many bad guys that it was just kind of like when she was the most ridiculous. She was just like this badass.
She was cartoony, yeah.
Yeah, she was like badass like Asian woman who was kind of like an anime character who was like shooting everyone like offhandedly. Nobody would ever notice that she's killing people, and it was just like very strange.
She was dressed too cool.
Yeah, like I didn't.
At least she wasn't like dressed in like skimpy clothing, like some like actual like comic book or something. But it was definitely kind of like
there was also
it was like the Matrix version of like, oh, like we get to pick our wardrobe too before we go here, and I'm gonna pick some cool badass leather and sunglasses.
But I don't know if there was like actually any. There might have been, but like it almost seems like there was no communication between like her and what was actually happening in the skyscraper between like the main villain. So it was just like just like
they didn't actually have back and forth. Like they would show him talking into the walkie-talkie and being like, cut off whatever on whatever floor, but there wasn't any actual like back and forth between them. Yeah.
So she would it was just kind of
she was
like
just disconnected. She probably just filmed everything separately too, and
she was just kind of bad by proxy, kind of. You know, it was just kind of like, oh, she's doing bad things too. She's probably working for him, kind of. It was just kind of like, it was also like, I love how we get introduced to like that hacker guy and then
kill him immediately.
Yeah, she's like, well, I can only unlock it with my face now, and then she kills him, and I was kind of like, all right, I guess we're never gonna go back to that.
It was also like he was kind of funny, like he had like his delivery was really good, and I was like, okay, they're introducing like a little bit of humor, and it's just so on brand for this movie to just be like, nope. Good night. Gotta go back to the serious stuff now.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I hate is like I feel like I said this during our Ghostbusters Girl Ghostbusters episode where I started talking about the original Ghostbusters, and I was like, one of the few things I don't like about the original Ghostbusters is that you have like this surrogate audience who like doesn't like when they're like, I feel like when they're fighting Zool or whatever, you have like this kind of people like out in the streets kind of watching and being like, oh, you know, reacting to things. You have a surrogate audience, and it's so bad in this movie. It's kind of like it's this never-ending like commercial for like Sharp TVs or whatever, and I don't know, and it's
is Sharp even like a Hong Kong brand? Like
I'm not sure. I don't know.
You would think they would do like Sony or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know, but it was just like, it was like a laugh track for action movies. It was kind of like, oh, I'm supposed to be on edge now because these people are on edge. I'm supposed to react like this, or I'm supposed to applaud now that The Rock has jumped into the building.
Yeah, like they did a bad job because they kept them all like faceless and like anonymous, essentially. Like it's just a big group. Like it's been done really well in other movies. Like I think the best example I could think of is Truman Show, where they have all the different people who are watching the Truman Show climax happening in like the bar and the bathtub, like on the street or whatever, and then you get to like sort of know these characters just through their reactions to the TV, and then like when the big like happy moment happens and they're all reacting, it's like quadrupling the happiness because we're also seeing these other side characters react to it, where here is literally just a crowd of nameless people watching like a big Sharp TV being like, whoa,
right, who don't know any context because the news,
it's just people watching the news. The
news has only the news has told all of these people that this like this gigantic terrorist attack is like primarily The Rock's fault, you know? And now they're all kind of cheering for him to jump in the tower. Like, it didn't make sense as a surrogate audience, kind of. It was just kind of like, it was kind of, it was just
they did sort of a poor job, or maybe just, I don't know, maybe I just didn't like it or it wasn't believable enough, but like, like the fugitive aspect of the movie of like, hey, because he wasn't really framed, he literally did like fight, like he was fighting in the middle of the street. Like, you know, it's not like they know any better about like, you know, oh, he's a good guy. Like, you know, and then like, so we just kind of have like the cops chasing him. And like, it would have made more sense if there was like a more clear divide between like, he's a wanted man, but the public's rooting for him because they can tell that he's got like good intentions or something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
I like that I don't know, actually. I don't know. The wife character is kind of this capable. She's not like a damsel in distress, really, but she's this capable kind of like, oh, she, you know, exposition police. She did 3 tours in Iraq and she was a Navy medic and yada, yada, yada. She's still almost kind of a damsel in distress, kind of, at some point. But I mean, she does, I guess she shoots people and kills somebody, maybe? I don't know.
And there's the whole weird thing with her, like, where when she gets out of the building, then the cops are like talking to her, and like that's fine. But then like when she tells, like she kind of solves the mystery of like, oh, maybe it's over here. Why does she need to go with the cops? Like they couldn't just keep a couple sergeants. Like why is she going on a raid of a dangerous place when she doesn't? Like it's not like they give her a gun and they're like, all right, we need all the men we can get or something. Like
she's not going.
There's no reason for her to be in the squad car. Like they could have left her back at like the mission control or whatever with a radio or something. She almost dies in the squad car. Yeah, like it was.
She's not there to like console her like one surviving family member at the moment.
Yeah, where's the kid? That's like they like introduced that like the kid has like really severe like asthma or whatever.
Right.
But it's just kind of like
there's never any payoff.
It's a nothing point because like there's another kid, so like, I mean, and also like they just have to get out of the building anyway. Like it's not like it adds any real urgency. Like the building's on fire. Like they need to get the fuck out of there either way.
Right.
Like even if you don't have asthma, you have trouble breathing in smoke really badly. Like they probably should have been dead a long time ago in the movie based on the amount of smoke that they breathe in.
He never really,
and he should have been dead based on that.
Yeah.
He didn't have an actual asthma. He just coughs.
He didn't have he never has like the close call kind of that you would think.
I was like waiting for like a
Signs
rip off like scene. If this movie did one thing well, it made me appreciate that scene in Signs. So well.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean all the dialogue is like entirely exposition, pretty much. And then like that entire beginning is kind of foreshadowing because like the same kind of like things keep popping up again and again and again with like what happens in like that first scene or whatever. It's kind of like the end is kind of just like, oh, he's holding the daughter just like that guy was holding the son or whatever. Something I didn't really need was the whole scene of him going into the turbine to shut off just so he can go get the businessman, and like meanwhile the terrorists are just on the roof for like hours, what seems like a fucking long
he's
time.
Just kind of by himself walking throughout the building, like getting through it.
He's gonna open the fucking doors to the almost unarmed man who has like the thing that they need. Why are they all going on the roof? Like I was so confused about that. It's just kind of like, you guys are here to
waiting for the helicopter. I don't know. I mean, they did want to get out of there because it's on fire.
Oh no,
I guess,
definitely, yeah.
I guess that's their thought. Is like, oh, you go get the thing.
Yeah, the thumb drive.
And I guess they're but I don't know.
Also, what was the plan? Why burning the fucking building down for a thumb drive?
Yeah, that is kind of wild, I guess. But why wouldn't they just? I don't know. Like, if that guy's locked himself in that room, like, I don't know, find a way to keep him in there and just be like, all right, let him burn.
Right, yeah.
I guess maybe they didn't want to risk that they eventually put the fire down. Also, why is there never, like, do we never see anyone, like, actually trying to put the fire out? Like, in terms of, like, why were there not, like, helicopters, like, spraying the building and stuff? Like, it doesn't seem like there's any actual fire efforts. Like, I know the building's fire stuff is out and the suppression system is out, but, like, you would think there'd be fire trucks like spraying, the hoses as high as they could, or like, the fire helicopters that like, battle like wildfire blazes, like coming in and spraying the chemicals.
Right. Also, the fire when they first light the fire, it's some sort of chemical that I feel like water cannot put out or something. And then at the end, like, it's just like all of a sudden water puts it out. Like, it was just, I mean, like on that specific floor. I don't know if that's nitpicky or like if that maybe
there was
that
something
chemical's
weird. Wasn't there something weird with
something.
that? Like, there was like the dry chemical that they were putting down, but it reacted with the water, didn't it?
Yeah,
and caught fire.
The water almost ignites it, and it's like a green flame or something. Also,
I don't know if that's a real thing or they made that up for this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, that's another thing is like we've come like a long way with like CGI. I mean, we did. I don't know if we talked about this during our like Ant-Man and the Wasp review, but like the younger like Michael Douglas, like that was fucking wild. Like those effects. Like I think I said something about that during the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Like they have a younger in that, and I was like, we've reached peak, you know, like whatever. And then I saw like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I was like, holy shit! Like Michael Douglas, like. Now we've really reached like this peak CGI kind of making somebody look younger, just having an entire performance from that. And it's almost to the point where I'm like, it's kind of like, are we only like a few years off from just having entire movies of just younger actors, like who were once older?
There's the whole like, are we going to just have dead actors and like holograms essentially?
Yeah, exactly. Because we have that technology now. But what I was getting at is like we've mastered like how water looks. Water looks fantastic with CGI. Fire,
not so much.
Especially not in this movie. The entire time I was watching it, I was like, this is only adding to the fact that I know all of this is on a green screen. This tower doesn't exist.
Yeah,
which takes away from it. Like have it be an actual. I don't know, but then you can't have the final boss battle in the funhouse. You know, it's too.
That, but like I'm okay, I guess I'm okay. Like again, I wish they had some sort of real world application for that thing, so that there was a reason for it to be there besides being the location of the final boss battle.
Right.
But then that final boss battle, like they do. Like again, like I'm fine with the foreshadowing that happens the first time they go in when he's like, "Oh, I'm actually over here." And you know, there's cameras that are showing whatever, blah blah blah. And then when they're up there, they do that gag with all the smaller like henchmen, like 3 or 4 times, where like that just keeps happening. And then so then like when it happens at the end, like I was like that's like the final like action punchline. It's like actually I'm over here. And then again, like you pointed out, they literally have like shots from like behind it.
Yes.
It's a bad last scene. And it's just kind of, it's got this, I mean, it's supposed to be disorienting, but it's not great for a last climactic battle because it's like, it's a sort of less defined sense of place.
Right.
And we're just, like, you're just kind of looking at, like, the outside and the inside at the same time and, like, cracked screens. And it's just entirely green screen in there.
They also do so much setup with, like, how are these bad guys gonna get off the tower? Oh my god! Like we saw them with their base jumping.
Is that a real brand? I was wondering. Is that
I don't know
product placement?
Yeah, I have no idea. But like base jumping, yada yada. They're gonna base jump. Oh my god! There's not enough parachutes for everybody. And there's so much setup for that, and then there's like zero payoff. Like that was like something I was concerned about. I was like, oh man, if they all like leave, how are they gonna? But then it's just like the wife is like, I'm gonna turn the fire off, and then like a helicopter saves them at the end, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess the parachutes are there for nothing, really. Like it's even like a big scene where like one of the bad guys has to like give up his parachute to like the businessman, kind of.
I was like, why did he just do that? Like that scene was kind of funny to me. Like it reminded me of like there's that like one skit, I forget who made it, I don't think it was anyone big, but it was basically like this like home invasion, and there's like 2 parents and there's like the 2 kids, and like the home robbers come in with like masks and they just like point guns and they're like, you have to decide which kid we kill or we kill them both, and the parents are like, like this one, And then they just like pull the masks off and they're all right, you decide what to do with this information and walk out.
Yeah.
And then it's just the kids like awkwardly staring at the mom. Like, why did you pick me? And that's what I feel like with this like guy, like, why am I the one that has to give up the parachute? And again, like, I feel like that's an opportunity for like missed comedy here where like that's a genuinely kind of funny scenario. Like all these bad guys and it's like, well, no, why am I the one that has to give up the parachute? Like, what about like Greg? Like Greg didn't show up to whatever like last week. Like,
I'm not even the lowest on the pecking order. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. I never. Closing out, I never. One of my biggest complaints is I never really like felt a sense of stakes either. Like maybe the first scene kind of threw me off the scent, where I was like, "Whoa, they're killing wives and children or whatever." But the more I got into this movie, I was like, they're not killing Mrs. Rock.
Well, because it's like it's this contradiction of like they set up like it's this huge, larger than life, larger than you can ever imagine tower, but there's nobody fucking in it, and they evacuate everybody. Yes. So it's like this huge set piece and like huge circumstances. You have the entire
Christmas party, right?
But then there's only like 4 people that are in it that we should care about like dying. It's just his family. Like they needed more people that were just kind of like fodder there, and like a couple of them should have died, and we should have felt for them, and should have like everyone that like the bad guys were killing were like employees of somewhere else. Like they should have been killing some like actual like helpless civilians that happened to be in the building or something,
right? Yeah.
To make us be like, oh, like this is like a big deal, and like
serious, right?
We were never really hit with the stakes of like if this building actually comes down, people around it are gonna die. Like they weren't like evacuating everybody; they were just kind of like letting them watch the building burn. Like, can you imagine if like the World Trade Center, like if they were just kind of like, oh yeah, you can just like sit here and like watch it, like.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they probably did because they didn't have time to get into the whole logistics of evacuating everybody.
I mean, we've seen the footage. Nobody's standing around watching the World Trade Center come down.
They're like, running away.
Yeah, they're getting the fuck out of there, which, again, makes this just feel less realistic. It's just kind of like
the audience that's supposed to make us feel, that's looking at everything being like, ooh, ah. Like, it's hard to believe them when they're sitting there watching a building burn, that when it does topple, is like a huge tree that's just going to come down, like,
oh yeah, that's several miles long,
or even if it just happens to implode like directly down, the smoke and whatever is just going to like go for blocks and blocks and blocks.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I knew they were never going to kill Mrs. Rock or
Mrs. Rock,
the rock children, the pebbles,
the little rocks, little pebbles.
And like again, like maybe even the businessman was going to die an honorable death because he good guy, you know, like. But yeah, I was never. I don't know. I saw Central Intelligence. I liked that.
That's the thing that also bothers me about the lack of comedy is that he directed Dodgeball, one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Oh yeah.
And then, I mean, I haven't seen We're the Millers.
Same, but we've heard good things.
And then you're telling me that Central Intelligence is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's just funny. It's like I don't know.
It's like getting hired for like a job that like sort of overlaps with your previous experience and not using your previous experience. Like you get hired to direct this big set piece action movie, even though you're a comedy director, and you don't like the thing that basically ends up killing your movie is the fact that you didn't bring any of your comedy experience to this. Like that's really what's holding this movie back, because like even if like the CGI is a little cheesy and that the plot is a little, you know, schlocky and just boilerplate and not really any effort put into it, like almost any summer blockbuster can be saved by comedy. Like,
right, yeah.
Like it's not like anyone came to Skyscraper being like, I want a believable plot about a crazy skyscraper that's gonna, you know, burn to the ground and the rock's gonna like jump across a crane to it. Like,
right.
We came here for like incredible action feats, maybe mostly for like the Rock's charisma and hopefully for some like punchlines and like just fun and like mindless sort of entertainment, and like this like forgot to do like the actual like entertainment part of this movie.
I mean, I think that's why Jumanji was like this fucking never-ending box office hit. For it was like,
because as much as I hate the fact that they made Jumanji that way, that is what blockbusters are supposed to be. It's like, you know, comedy and a
Right.
little bit of romance and a little bit of action and just like fun stuff happening. Like that's why like I think like Transformers is still one of the best like blockbusters of all time.
Right.
Is like it's funny. And it's also like there's like a tiny bit of like romance, like not that it's really compelling romance, but you know there's that little like oh will they won't they thing with
Right,
Megan
yeah.
Fox and Shia LaBeouf, and you know there's like a little bit of touching moments between him and the Transformers, and there's also just like cool badass like action going on in that, and crazy like CGI stunts and set pieces and whatnot, and you combine all that together, and that's what people want to go to see for a popcorn movie. And I feel like everything that's come out since then has like forgotten one of those elements at some point.
Yeah.
Usually the comedy is what it's missing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
All the comedy writers are in TV.
yeah. I don't know because he wrote it too, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the director wanted to get into like I want to be taken more seriously and do bigger budget stuff and like overcompensated for like I don't want to just be like some comedy director kind of, even though like and maybe Central Intelligence was like this transition into like look I can do comedy and action kind of, and then it's kind of like you know if I want this like $150 million budget movie or whatever this was, it's kind of like it's gonna be all action and it's gonna be a big summer blockbuster. But again, he did not pay attention or it didn't have the knowledge of like like what Rampage was going to be like. Did that do good? I don't even remember.
Not great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it lost money.
Yeah. Again, overseas kind of. I also think that would have got lost in translation. And if you look at like the studio that put this on, it's like what is it called? Like the H Brothers or something. Like it's
The production companies were Legendary Pictures, Flynn Picture Company, and Seven Bucks Productions.
Oh, I thought somebody funded this that was like primarily like in Asian.
The producers were Beau Flynn, Dwayne Johnson, and Hiram Garcia.
Maybe I'm thinking of another movie. I thought this was like a. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, they're definitely making this, again, for the worldwide box office. Yeah. And it just sucks that, sure, maybe it'll make a lot of money like overseas, but I don't know. We've totally lost. It's just devoid of any emotion, really.
Yeah.
Over here. But yeah.
Anyway, let's get into some ratings for this. Let's see. On review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 49% based on 193 reviews with an average rating of 5.2 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, well cast yet derivative, Skyscraper isn't exactly a towering action thriller feat, but it's solidly constructed enough to stand among the genre's more mildly diverting features. We did have 2 Facebook comments on the Facebook group, which you can join. How many fingers am I holding up? The Facebook group. And the comments are both in GIF form. Our good friend Big Mac commented with Boo for Monsters, Inc. falling asleep. And CJ Thomas commented a picture of a literal dumpster fire. I don't know if either of them actually saw this or if that's just their perception from afar. I can go first. I don't really have anything to say. I'm going to give it 1 finger.
Okay.
I think it was maybe slightly better than Rampage. And I think that's maybe just because I think the action was a little more compelling and there was like some semblance of like plot. Maybe plot's not the right word. Just sort of like a full circle idea there. Like there wasn't really like a driving, like the driving force was just, oh, I got to save my family. And it's so tired and we're so bored of it. But there was this sort of like, it's like one movies that's sort of followed up on The Rock's like troubled past that they try to do this exposition for, in terms of like, oh, I haven't touched a gun. And then he touches a gun in the end. And I guess he's mostly doing hand-to-hand combat sort of for the other parts of it.
It wasn't even a hesitation, I feel like, to pick up a gun or shoot the gun though.
Yeah, that's what they should have played that up more. Like, oh, I don't want to do this, but,
right? Yeah,
you'll make me do it because it's my daughter. It is also kind of a weird full circle thing to be like, oh, he just got the courage to pick up a gun again and kill a man.
It's also like, it's not...
That's what The Rock was missing in his life,
it's
was
not like
cold-blooded murder.
Yeah, right? It's not like the first scene was like, I fucking shot the wrong person, or I misfired
That's
a
what,
gun,
yeah, that's what
yeah.
it feels like it's trying to be that.
Right, yeah. Huh.
I mean, I guess he's feeling guilt about not taking action, but it's not something that seems like it's affected the rest of his life. Like, he's running a successful company that makes a bid for the biggest skyscraper in Hong Kong in the world, and wins. So yeah, I'm gonna give it one finger. There's not a whole lot it does well. There's a couple set pieces that I liked. The action is genuinely thrilling, but the comedy is non-existent or just falls flat on its face when it does try. So one finger. Not great.
Yeah. I'm going to give it 1.5 fingers. I think I give Rampage 2 fingers. Literally, the monkey simulating sex.
Save that movie for you.
It's like, I mean, like, I could just use that as an example where
you gave Rampage 2, I gave it a 1.
We're meeting in the middle now. there's this trace of humor. I mean, like, even when they're scaring that guy who's like bragging to the girl or something, there's some sort of human property to that. Whereas, like, this is like a clean action movie, kind of. Like, you know, like, it's well done. It's not super confusing or it's not super dumb or anything. Mm-hmm. But again, it's missing a lot, kind of. And it's just... it being like straightforward also kind of makes it devoid of like any personality or something. I do think the director's bringing some sort of style into this movie. And again, I think it's mostly in the beginning where I was like, okay, there's a sense of style here. And I was picking up on the sci-fi vibes. Like, I even like when they go into the Pearl. Like, it's visually stimulating, where it does look like it's just like a cool, like, you know, they just shot it standing on a green screen, you know, but it's still like a cool visual and everything.
Yeah, I guess there's an idea there, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's cool, and that looks like sci-fi-esque. But then, like, the rest of the movie is kind of like, gotta take the super crane, jump through the glass window, and tape cement to my hands so I can punch guys hard. Like, you know, like, it's like, it doesn't follow up with that aesthetic at all. Like, it's like, and then if the duct tape's not working, you're not using enough of it, you know? So yeah, so I'm gonna give it a 1.5. It is kind of like this boilerplate kind of movie, and I mean, it kind of did its job well. But there are points, again, when he's going into the turbine where I was like, is any of this really that necessary? Like, I feel like I already watched this stunt with the crane, kind of. Like, this isn't super original.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, yeah, again, like, it kind of became so predictable at one point that I was kind of like, don't fall asleep. You know, like, it was, so, yeah, 1.5.
So that'll come to 1.25, which will round down to 1 fingers for this movie. So near the bottom of the barrel for the year for us here on the podcast. Yeah, so if you agree or disagree, leave a comment below on SoundCloud or YouTube, or you can hit us up on Twitter, or more efficiently, you can join the conversation that's already in progress on How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, the Facebook group. Just search that on Facebook, join up. We have discussions about the movies we're reviewing, and you can get featured on the episode, or we just post memes or trailers or just discuss movies in general. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people have been participating recently. That's been pretty cool. So we
show us your dankest memes.
Yeah, show some dank memes from your stash. And that's about it. Anything else Joe will cover in the intro? Go to howmanyfingerspodcast.com for any other links you would desire. Check out our review next week with Caitlin Speece. Space.
Yeah, it's a good one. We already recorded it.
It's a wild one.
It gets wild.
Of Mamma Mia, here we go again.
Even if you didn't see the movie, I think
it's worth it. Yeah. And then after that, we're going to go record now our review of Mission Impossible Fallout, which should be pretty good too as a 3rd episode. So check that out. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.